I currently have over 20 employees, but I've gone through the process of almost hiring and looking through resumes of at least 200 people. I'm going to talk to you on how to look and hire people offshore, especially when you're trying to do remote work. There's a few key things that you need to do in these hiring processes because there's unlimited demand for work. So let's get right into it. Step one, you have to know exactly what job you want them to do, and you have to have the skills and knowledge around that job to do it. Since I'm doing a lot of remote work and my field that I'm in is social media for different people, what I'm doing is I'm hiring people through my already extensive knowledge on this subject, filling roles in those gaps. I would not hire somebody right now to do some mechanical engineering or coding online because I have no clue how to code. So I have no clue how to hire someone that is best for that job because I don't know the baseline of what needs to be done. When you're hiring someone offshore, especially if you're not going to have direct communication for them, you need to make sure that you know how to do their role just as good as them, or at least you have the extensive knowledge to where you know how to evaluate if they're doing a good job. And that depends greatly upon who you're going to hire and who you're not. So this is the most important part, the step number two. When you get your job post out there, you can use pretty much anything. Most of my employees are in the Philippines. I use onlinejobs.ph. No ties to them. I just think it's a great website. So what you do is when you're making these job boards, you have to give them a trial test. So on my job board, I'll get anywhere from, let's say, 50 to 100 people who want to apply for the job. Every single one of them, I'm going to send back a trial for them to accomplish. For that trial, it is going to demonstrate their exact skill set needed for the job in a pretty short time frame. And you're going to have a great deal of reference as to how good they're going to be just by looking at that. So you're not going to be talking to these 100 people. I have never, after I hired, let's say, the first 5 to 10 people, I have not even read a single resume. They mean nothing. I don't care what they've worked for in the past. I only care about the exact skill that is needed for this job. So when they do the trial, let's say out of those 50 people, you get 25 emails with a trial. You are going to skim through these, and you are only, and I mean only, looking for something if it exceeds your expectations and if it is perfect. That's why at the beginning where I said you have to have a great understanding of what you're doing. This is why when you review the trial work, it has to go beyond your expectations. The reason is this is a big mistake that I've made in the past, is when I was hiring people, at first I would do something that looked good enough. You know what? This guy, he's pretty good. He's doing almost what I wanted, but I'm sure I can train him to get up to speed. I've never once hired somebody who I skimmed through their trial work and it wasn't perfect. And then they've never turned into a superstar worker. Every single time they're just mediocre or average, and I usually have to replace them, which is the worst process. So spend way more time on the hiring process. This should take longer than any other part. Looking through these trials and making sure that they exceed any expectation that you want, because there's so much demand out there. All you need to do is be sometimes it's your fault. You're not specific enough upon what you want for the job board. You're not doing enough clarity. You're not giving enough clarity to where exactly what you want. So make sure you have all this nailed down. Then how do you actually manage the employees? Because once you hire somebody, let's say out of those 25 emails I get back, there's going to be 2 to 3 people usually who have a really good trial. And out of those trials, sometimes I'm going to hire all 3 because I am doing a lot of work for a lot of people and I need to bring these people on. But sometimes if you have 3 people who all seem like they could be potential superstars, who do you hire? From those 3 people, then you set up calls with them. All of this is a multi-day process, and it doesn't take much time. Once you set up the job board, you get everyone on a trial. That's going to take a day or 2. Then you're going to shuffle through all the trials. Maybe there's 3 people. You set up a call with these 3 people. And what you're looking for is, since they're offshore, you're looking for really good English and communicator. And you're going to ask them to walk you through the steps upon their trial video or whatever they're doing for you. Whatever trial they have to do, you need for them to explain to you why they did what they did, because it is super important that you do not want somebody with zero creativity and zero thought behind what they do. Everything that is done, especially for what I need people to do, it has to be intentional. When you cut here or when you do a certain twist in the work, I want to know your thought process behind doing that, because maybe you did a very good trial, but you made a few mistakes and you didn't actually know what you were doing. And that makes a big difference, because if you're doing the same thing every single day, you want it to be perfect. So once you find your person, it's pretty easy. It's going to take some micromanaging for the first week or two, because getting everyone on track and getting a system in place takes a bit of time. But once you have that, I right now spend maybe 2 hours a day managing over 20 employees. And I mean, like that 2 hours is pretty much just through payroll, because I haven't filled anyone to do those roles yet. Justin, do you have any questions? I've been talking too much.
No, it's good, because like I said, I've never actually myself ventured out into hiring overseas, but just I would note the first thing is that they're not necessarily employees, they're independent contractors. There's a very important distinction you probably want to make from the get-go from that front. And the second thing I would say is, so in real estate, we definitely do rotate through employees, but to your point, you want to have, to the extent that you can, especially when you're managing someone, very clear, very bright line, very measurable tasks and objectives and goals that you're trying to set out for a task that needs to be done. And once you find a good person, by all means, sink your hooks into them, pay them whatever you need to pay them. Don't let them get away from you, because finding good people is hard to do. And once you find a good person, hold on to them. And lastly, what I'll say is, Josh, I think I found this with residents, but I would assume from your response too, that the same thing applies very much so to employees as well. Take extra time, to screen your tenants, so you don't let in a problem child, because it's much harder to get a bad person out. Or I'd rather spend longer and let a property sit vacant, but put in a good resident, than take a quick and easy one, right, that would get a body in their place right now, but create a problem down the line. And I think it's the same thing that you're saying with employees, spend much more time and be much more diligent at the initial hiring process to get someone who's going to work out really well. And if that means you have to forego and you have to carry an extra load yourself for 1 or 2, 3 weeks, whatever, right, so be it. But hold out for a good person, because a good person will eventually come along if you're doing the work, I think, to track them down and find them.
Yeah, just like with your real estate. I mean, Justin has no offshore employees. I only have offshore employees. But the process is the exact same for anything that you're doing. And the reason I'm saying offshore is because that's where I have experience. But if I was hiring anybody, I think one of the most important things that I've learned, because when I tell you I've screened over 200 people, it's well over that. I mean, that is what I'm good at, is screening these people very quickly to know who is a good hire and who is not, because I've made the mistake that the 20 people that I have now are not the 20 people that I started with. And the only way that you learn is by doing it and failing and screwing up and then going over the process again. That's how it's going to be for absolutely everything in life. But you have to have a direct task for them to do before you hire them. And if you get 100 tasks, let's just say you set up a trial of, you got to do A, B, C, and D. Once these people do A, B, C, and D, you're basically just a teacher and you're grading their work, and you are looking for the student that does the best. And once you find someone that does really good, then you bring them on. And if their work usually continues to be good, if it was good in the first place. I cannot stress this enough. When I'm grading these reports, let's say, anytime I've seen someone that was a B and said, you know what, this person seems good, I'm going to train them up to be an A student. It never works that way. A B student's always going to be a B student, and an A student most likely is going to continue to be an A student. Sometimes they're not, but I only play with A students now. So with that ado, thank you. And Justin, do you have any more comments?
No, Josh, sounds good. Again, I would emphasize, you want to be able to take the task, clearly articulate what's going on, bright lines, bright goals, and take your time and make sure you get a good person up front.
Thank you, and we'll see you in the next one.